Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Literary Ladies podcast. Today we have a special guest, Hilarion. Say hello, Hilarion.
Hi, Hilarion.
Hi, Hilarion. I don't know about KP. I met Hilarion back in college. KP, what about you?
We met in college.
Same. Okay. So we all met at UCF in Orlando. And Hilarion is an avid reader. I have always looked at her Goodreads for like ever. She posts so many books on there. So I'm like, okay, what's Hilarion reading? I need to read this too. I also read Fangirl because of you, which I loved.
Oh, it's one of my favorites. Yeah. Rainbow is just like by far just the best author for 20-something, peeps.
Yep.
I've read that so many times. I don't typically buy the hardbacks if I can get away with it. Like the library is my go-to, and I own that because I just love it so much.
Yeah, so I love that book too. And since she is such an avid reader and has already read One to Watch, which is the book we are doing today, One to Watch by Kate Stayman-London, we invited her to be on the podcast with us today.
Woo!
Yay!
Yay!
So KP, why don't you go ahead and give the little synopsis of the book?
Oh, okay. Here we go. So this book was about a reality TV show like The Bachelor, but it was called Main Squeeze. And they casted their first plus-size bachelorette or main squeeze. And it kind of just went on with the season. And you got to hear about all her different relationships and all the haters. And it was great.
All the haters. So as usual, there's going to be spoilers after this. So if you haven't read it, probably go read it before you listen. Or don't, just listen to us talk. That's fine too. So we'll go ahead and get started. We have some questions that we pulled off the internet. Where did you get them, KP? I don't know.
Google.
Somewhere random.
I searched it.
Yeah, and then I also just wrote up some other questions that kind of weren't covered because the questions were a little odd, but we've answered some of those.
Vague. And they didn't really dive deep into the book at all, which is what we're doing. So
right. So we'll do a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask the first question. It says, I fully related to Bia's love-hate relationship with Main Squeeze because it's usually how I feel about The Bachelor and Bachelorette. Do you feel conflicted when watching shows like that? Are there any other shows or movies that you love, even though they have even though you have criticisms of them?
We'll pass it to our guest.
I don't, with like shows like The Bachelor, Bachelorette, I don't myself personally pursue them, but I've noticed every time someone else has it on and I'm in the room, I will end up getting sucked in and watching it. Mm-hmm. Like I watched this season's, like a lot of this season's Bachelorette, I guess, because my parents are super into it. So when I'd be at their house, it'd be on, or actually when I was at some other family for Thanksgiving, they had it on. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting that like this is actually not the first book I've read that sort of talks about like being on a Bachelorette style show. This is the first one that talks about it, the main character being a plus size fashion blogger. So that was cool because I actually related to the character in that capacity. But I think reality shows in general are such a like love to hate situation for most people, it's your guilty pleasure. And I personally think it's one of those things where when you've had a long day at work and it's been mentally taxing, coming home and just watching someone else's drama is just really relaxing.
Yeah, I put the same thing about it being a guilty pleasure because like half of these couples are not going to make it past a year. They always end up breaking up, but you just watch it for the drama. It's great.
I think it's like 80% of these couples.
Yeah. I put the same. I know Melanie and I are both watching The Bachelor that just started last week, and every girl that came out of the limo, I was like, "You're a model. You're also a model."
Yeah.
Oh, you're not a model, but you look like one. So it's like, it's insane to me. I have seen most seasons of The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, every Bachelor related show. And there is not, I can't remember anyone ever being over like a size 6, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's insane.
Even just recently, they've had more like skin pigmentation colors in the show. Before it was like strictly like you'd be lucky to find like one ethnic person that wasn't Caucasian in the
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they thought diversity a couple years ago was, oh, this guy's French. Like, and we kind of, you know, or like, what was his name on Pablo, where he was from? Like, oh, he's Latino. And it's like, yeah, he's like white. So I don't, yeah, and all the wheat people. And it's, I wonder too, if in the future with these types of shows, like, will it ever get to a point where it's going to be hard for them to find that? Because the average size woman is a size 16. Mm-hmm. Like there's the narrow, it's got to be narrowing, like the, you know, to find these types of people to like, you're literally having to go out of your way to find skinny people.
Yeah. I guess it could be why so many of the contestants on that show are in their early 20s, like 21, 22, 23. You're like, wow, like you're just going on here and getting ready to get married.
But not.
But not. So how about this next question? Would you ever go on a show like The Main Squeeze, and why or why not?
Hell no. That like, I thought about this question and it gave me so much anxiety. I was like, I could not like go on a show where I know millions of people are watching me like talk to this guy for the first time and like go on these dates, and I just like that. No.
Yeah, I think that's what made One to Watch so realistic, is because they included those articles from different and those comments and stuff that like just fat people in general get to interact with in social media, of like, one, the fact that she's plus sized or fat makes her brave for doing this, when it should just be like, oh, she's just yet another person doing it. Mm-hmm. And then just like like you were saying earlier, the haters, right? So you had those articles from I really like that the author put those like fake articles in there, and then like comments she got on Instagram or on her blog that were really hateful, but then she also had those ones sprinkled in that were pro B main character. And then also the one that she had from like, that was supposed to be from Jezebel, where basically they called her a sellout. That was really interesting too, because right, Jezebel tends to be a very like feminist news source. Mm-hmm. I really liked that, because if anything, if I ever had thought about being on something like The Bachelorette, reading this book made me go, yeah, never. Because I was like, the anxiety just from her reading her being in it.
Yeah, the biggest fear would just be going through the same, because they did make it so realistic, just what she went through. That's the biggest fear, just going through the same situations that she had, like, because none of those people have dealt with people of her size before on this show. So while they may have friends or acquaintances that might be plus size, like that's not what they're doing in their everyday job. It's, oh, let's make these people that look like models go dress up in bikinis and have a beach day, you know?
Yeah, even just the discord between Laura and the producer, the activities she would pick to put in, and just like her just not even being able to fathom that like, this is an uncomfortable situation. This is not something, you know, like she was saying, when I post pictures of myself in bikinis and whatnot, I own those photos. I get to pick ones to put on my blog. I get to pick the angles, versus this, you have no control over how you're going to be perceived, whether it's the angle, the different cameras and what angle they choose to use, like, or the editing and how they choose you to look. Like, there's just, it's a really terrifying thought, honestly.
Yeah. I agree. I also thought that while reading the book, that why would she pick these dates where she's in a bathing suit so much? Like, no plus size woman, unless you're like a very very, very, very confident, wants to like do a bunch of dates where they're in a bathing suit. And yeah, like what you said about the angles, like, and even if there's a photo and you think, oh, I look really good in this photo, like, the curves look great, I look great, it goes on the internet and people are like, you're fat, you're a pig, you're disgusting. And it's
no
like,
one's gonna have sex with you.
yeah,
That
no one's
kind
gonna
of,
have sex with you.
yeah.
No guy will ever love you. Like, okay, thanks. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would think she would have learned, Lauren, the producer, would have learned when she decided to do that belly dancing date later on in the book. And I love how they flipped that script. Like Sam, one of the candidates, I've been worked, one of the contestants, how he basically like was like, I'm gonna belly dance instead. Like, yes, okay, cool. But I mean, just I felt, I don't know about you, but I feel she did such a great job of making me feel all of the emotions B was having. And
yeah.
that's, I think, so hard to do, especially when you talk about characters in third person. And because you kind of lose that when you're saying it's a lot easier for you to kind of put yourself in their shoes, and she was using third person. So I just thought that was just a really cool situation of how much, I mean, it was stressful, but like I really liked that I got to feel what she was feeling because she just wrote it so well.
Yep. Shout out to Sam for being awesome. He was a great
Yeah,
character.
he was great. One of the only diverse contestants.
Do you think that The Bachelorette would ever cast a plus size star, and how do you think America would react to that?
I don't see that ever happening, ever. I think if it does, it would be like, I don't even know, in 20 years, and I think it still would be a bad idea. Like, it's not going well.
I think it's nice that, you know, the body positivity movement is around in a way that it wasn't when Bachelor and Bachelorette started.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of going back to what I said, like in the future, like how easy is it going to be for them to find these people that fit their little box? So I hope at some point it does happen, but I hope that they do a better job of having diverse romantic interests in both, you know, size and race and what, and even sexual orientation. Like I would love, even if she's skinny or he's skinny, I would love a bi contestant, right? Like one who you get like men and women get to buy for this person. So it's just,
tequila, shot at love.
oh yeah. But just like the whole situation of, it's just so interesting that there are so many options out there, not just at this point, you know, what size that person is, but how they identify, you know, who they are interested in, that kind of thing. And here we are living in like white heteronormative America. So, and giving them money.
Yeah, I think the closest they would even get is maybe someone that's like a size 12, and then they would make sure that they were this drop dead gorgeous. Someone like, is it Ashley Graham, who's like the like swimsuit model? It would be someone like that. Like they wouldn't, it wouldn't be an average looking woman. That's
no, no, has the curves all in the right place.
Yeah. Let's see, which of Bia's suitors did you like the best and why?
It's been so long. I'm like, what are their names?
I mean, I love Asher, who, spoiler alert, she ends up with. I think that they were a really good balance to each other, because I think she brought out a goofiness in him with how serious he could be, and then vice versa. And I mean, right there, I love that she brought up, you know, like Asher's son being gender fluid was super cool, that was part of the conversation. Sam too, obviously, like those are my 1 and 2, because screw off Luke with the stuff he did. So
yeah. How about you, KP?
So I loved Asher. He was my number 1. I loved Wyatt, like not romantically for her, but her friendship. I loved that so much. And yeah, Luke was super sketchy. Hated him.
Yeah, Wyatt was also my favorite just because he was super genuine with her. He was very honest with her. I knew like Asher was going to be the one for her and that he was good for her ultimately. I just didn't enjoy the way he acted towards the end of the book.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like put him down a little bit.
That's fair. And like, I don't know why I totally forgot about Wyatt, honestly, but I loved that. And again, another point, him being asexual, like how cool that there was an ace character.
Yeah, she did an amazing job with this.
Yeah.
I love that storyline because that's like where the friendship grew when he like opened up to her and she was like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, we're good friends. This is awesome. I was like, oh, I love them. Like, she doesn't need to end up with anyone. She can just be with Wyatt.
Yeah, it provided that sense of like security for her too, because she knew there was someone that she could end up with, even though it wouldn't be true. But that's how she went onto the show in the first place. She didn't really think she was going to end up with anyone anyway.
Right. Yeah. And then also with the storyline of him like ending up being asexual, like the author totally could have gone with just, I think, the regular route, where I remember when I first read it, I was like, oh, he's going to be gay. Like, I feel like that's what the storyline is going to be. And that it wasn't just that, like she kind of went even further. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
But no, I love that she had a safe choice, and she had a choice that could potentially, like, you know, when Lauren was telling her, you know, now that it's real, you have to realize that like the audience is here for your highs and lows emotionally, and you have to be ready for that it is all out there for people to see.
Yep. All right, so next question. When Bea doesn't choose either of the finalists at the end of the show, she's showing that getting engaged isn't the only happy ending. Being happy and fulfilled on your own is also a happy ending we should all strive for. Have you ever felt as though society tells us you can only be happy if you are partnered up? And how did you combat that?
Kate, you want this one first?
Sure. Yes, 100%. It's all about, okay, so the three of us, two of us are 30-ish, and then Melanie, you're a little bit younger. But like, my mom is constantly like, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? Oh, I just want you to be happy. When are you going to give me grandbabies? And when are you going to get married? But just be happy. And I told her, I'm like, listen, if you can find me a husband, great. But until then, like, shut up. Because but like, yeah, society is like so much like, you need to go to college, you need to meet a guy, you need to get married, you need to have 12 kids. And then you need to be a stay-at-home mom, and then you need to die. Like,
yeah. I think I remember a relative saying to me, and at this point I was out of college, how she was worried her sons weren't going to end up with their college girlfriends because, you know, it's so hard to meet people afterwards. And I was like, hi. Yeah, you're, you know, just here being single. And I remember even having the conversation with you, KP, like constantly we were just like, man, like, when are we going to meet somebody? And for me, it wasn't until, and I feel like this is so cliche, but it wasn't until I had so many other things in my life in order that everything fell in place for me. And I mean, I'm not in that relationship anymore, but it's still something that I'm really thankful for, because it wasn't until I was like, yeah, I'm actually really good being alone, that made me realize, okay, I'm ready to meet somebody truly, or like actually invest in this, because I could tell you some stories about the amount of first dates I've been on and just never anything coming from it. And a lot of it being me so desperate to meet somebody, because like you said, KP, that's what we're told in society. We're already feeling, because we're 30 something women and we haven't met anybody yet. I'm really thankful my parents aren't like your mom, where we actually were with a family friend and she was like, I'm ready for grandbabies. Aren't you ready for grandbabies, Joan? To my mom, and mom's like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, I'm really enjoying like not having to help anybody with any kids. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated that of her, that, you know, this isn't the be all end all, that she's proud of me just for being advanced in my career at this point.
Yeah, I think it's totally possible to be happy just being by yourself and doing whatever the hell you want to do, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that it wasn't portrayed the way this question makes it seem like it was portrayed in the book, because even though she didn't end up with anyone, she still was sad and went back to the museum and was missing Asher. So she wasn't happy being alone. But she did end up with someone, which is good for her. But I think aside from that, it is possible to end up being happy by yourself. Just look at Wyatt, right?
I will counterpoint. I do like that they showed, you know, at the beginning of the book, she's wallowing over Robbie. Is that what his name was? Ray, whatever. One of those that are dumb. But she's wallowing over Ray there one night together after being, you know, the whole unrequited love situation for years with him. And she basically doesn't go out for like a year. So, and then you fast forward to after Main Squeeze, and there's like a text conversation between her and her best friend Marin. Her Marin's like, oh, are you guys still partying, you know, kind of deal. And she's like, yeah, so-and-so's about to twerk kind of deal. So I like that they showed that even though we all knew she was bummed about not ending up with someone, specifically Asher, she was actually living her life though.
Yeah, for sure.
She wasn't letting missing Asher stopping her from being a live person, basically.
Right.
Like she did with Ray. So I really, really enjoyed that they did show, hey, like I can wallow over somebody, but still be there for my friends.
Right. I would agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was the end of the questions that we got kind of off the internet, and we're going to go into some questions that I wrote about the book. I took over KP's job because normally she writes the questions, but we'll see how I did. So the first one is, do you think this book did a good job at depicting the perspective of a plus size woman today? Why or why not?
I would say, yeah. I related to it a ton. A lot of the stuff that she dealt with, like, I mean, I didn't relate to like the comments and like the people like saying mean things as much, but like how hard it is to be in a relationship as a plus size woman, and how you have to like check 12 boxes off before you even go on a date with a guy. It's just hard. It's really hard. And it makes you like really insecure and not want to like go date, because you're like, oh, if I met him off Tinder, like, do I have to like tell him before I get to the date, like, oh, by the way, I'm plus size, like I know I kind of look skinny in my pictures, but like, like just a heads up. But it's like, it's so realistic to go on a date with someone and you show up and then be like, oh yeah, like this is not really what I signed up for. Like I don't date fat people. So I related to the book a lot, and I liked it because I felt like it was very realistic.
I think it helped that it was a plus sized author. You know, from what I saw from her picture, I don't think she's any sort of skinny lady. So I think she wrote it from a place of knowing how it is. And so I really appreciated that, because I don't really appreciate when people try to write outside of what they know and have experience in. And so, yeah, kind of, even though I've never gotten comments on the internet about my size, I've had them from men, or in some cases boys, because they're not men, in my opinion. Boys who basically have told me, oh, I find you attractive, but I would never date you because you're too fat. And like, looking back on it now, you're just like, man, how could I let someone talk to me that way? And I so related to her, even, you know, longing for Ray, right? Like this gorgeous guy who seems to think the world of her, and there's obviously chemistry there, but like no one's making the first move. And, you know, because you're the fat person in the situation, you're not going to make the first move because screw rejection. And I think in some ways men like that know that. They know that they have the power in that situation. And so it kind of just exactly what KP said, just totally understanding that, like I said, I had to put the book down a couple times. I read it in like a night, but I still had to put the book down a couple times because I was just like, oh, this is making me cry and like feeling really shaken. I'm like seen right now. So yeah, no, she did a great job with it.
Yeah, I was just talking, I think it was a few weeks ago, I was talking to my girlfriend about just the internal monologue that you have with yourself as a plus size person anywhere you go. Like you go into a restaurant and you're like, am I going to fit into this booth they're about to sit me at? And she did a great job capturing that when she was in that cafe in France. And it wasn't France or Paris, so I'm not sure, but when she was she was meeting someone and had to walk between all the tables and just talked about everyone looking at her. And you just have those same thoughts. At least I know I have those same thoughts when I go to places like that.
Yeah.
Was it France or Paris? Paris, France.
I mean, one is in the other. So
No. I know. I meant I didn't know if she had in the book, if she just said France in general or if it was Paris.
I think she was talking about Paris, specifically where where are you talking about when she was talking about like where she'd be walking through certain places and like she'd feel like eyes on her because she was just not the status quo when it came.
Yeah, it was specifically, I think, before she went to that flea market when she was eating, I think at her favorite cafe, and she was walking inside through the tables.
Yeah, I think there was also when she went on that like terrible first date, the blind date situation after Ray. I think they talked about it there too, where I remember them talking about it at some point. So you're spot on that.
For the record, I do know that Paris is in France.
I just like, you're like, Paris or France? And it's like,
I like look at Hilarion and I'm like,
I was just trying to remember what she actually said in the book, but
you're like France in general.
Okay, so next question. How did you feel when one of the men walked out on the first night after seeing Bee? Have you experienced anything similar to this in your life?
I mean, it was so shitty, honestly. If it were me, I would have been like, screw this. I'm out. I'm going home. I'm eating ice cream. I'm never leaving my house again. Because that was so shitty. And I feel like, and Lauren, the producer, set her up for that. So I'm like, really? You're going to like set this girl up to be like humiliated on TV and have this guy be like, you're disgusting, and then still think she wants to do the show?
Yeah.
Like, terrible.
And Lauren's reasoning for it, well, now people are going to root for you, and Bee's like, no, they're going to pity me. Like, what are you talking about? That was so, when that happened, you remaining meeting time 9 minutes.
Yeah, wrap this one up.
When that happened, I was just like, oh my God, that's just so like you I feel like I knew that was going to happen and I was like hoping it wouldn't, and just, yeah, that was not a fun feeling to deal with as you read. I forgot what the real question was.
No, that's fine. It was just about them walking out, and I said that it really hit home. And I told KP about this, and I've told my girlfriend about this. The first date we ever had, we went to Chick-fil-A, and she ordered before me, and I thought in my mind that she left the restaurant after she saw me. Like that was just this like intrusive thought that I had in my brain that like, oh, like she saw me and saw what I looked like and just left, but she didn't, and we're still together. So
yeah.
That didn't happen, but that was just like this like thing that's in my brain, like, oh, if someone sees the way I look, like, oh, they're gonna be repulsed by me and like leave the restaurant, because who would want to date me, you know?
Yeah, I've always had that concern, and thankfully it's never turned out that way. I think it turns into us ghosting each other at the end, but it's like, so we'll go through a polite, I think we're both like sitting there kind of counting down the minutes till it's polite enough to leave. I've had that a couple times, but that gives me a chance at the end to be like, I'm not interested in him anyway, like kind of build up that thought of, yeah, whatever, I wasn't really into it anyways, which I really wasn't, now that I think back on it. So it probably works out, but I can't even imagine what that'd feel like to just,
yeah.